Hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome to Warsaw. It's the Digital Motorsports World Cup, and we have been waiting so long for this. My name is Jack Cunnane. This is Kevin Galvin, just next to me. Kevin,
let's get ready to go then. Settle in as Ibrahim controls the pace and away straight away through the final corner at Brands Hatch. He is away as the green flag waves for race number 1 here at Brands Hatch. It's a great start from Mohammed Ibrahim. It's a great start as well for Sandy Mitchell up the inside of Josh Malin trying to follow Phil Dennis round the outside.
Carroll is out!
Oh, Carroll locks it up going into Copse and into the wall on the final lap. And Zach Campbell was on the inside. He took a big hit into Copse. Max Benecke for Germany. He wins the €10,000 prize fund. Sebastian Job hangs on for a second. He's a world champion, Benecke. And Hanshin Guven takes on the final lap to take that final podium position. What a race!
What? Well, after a bit of a wait, it's time for episode 2 of Commentator's Corner. And, well, the thing is that I've been speaking to a multitude of different people. So there are further guests lined up after Jack Cunnane, who joins me. Jack, a very belated Happy New Year. You've been a very, very busy individual as well, haven't you, these days?
You could say that. Thanks, Alex, for having me.
No problem at all.
Yeah, you could say, well, Christmas wasn't the best time. I was stuck inside with COVID, like many people. But, you know, the isolation was the worst part, like I said to you before. But I wasn't sick with it, so hey, we're happy.
All the T's crossed and all the I's dotted, so to speak. But Jack, just to really sort of let's start with how you actually got into commentary. I would imagine that was from the sim racing world side of things. I think Apex TV, I think you've been a part of as well. I've worked on a broadcast with them. How did you actually get involved with commentary? How did the spark get lit, so to speak?
Yeah, so would you believe, Alex, I've never told my story ever in an interview.
Here we go, the first time.
An exclusive. I've never been interviewed, so this is new.
Yeah.
So it started for me 6 years ago now. And this was back on PS4. So I used to race badly on Project Cars, the original.
Okay.
And I remember specifically where it started. I was in an open lobby and I got an invitation to a community, which I'd never got before. But it was basically a guy spam inviting everybody into those communities,
dear.
as you remember. Yeah. So I joined. I was like, okay, fine. Had to look through, and I seen that they did leagues that were run on a weekday, and that they were looking for commentators. And I knew I couldn't race, but I was like, might give commentary a try.
Yeah.
So I decided to do that. And that first commentary is still out there. I will give you the link to it.
Which will be in the description down below as
now,
well.
I don't recommend you watch it, but I'll give it to you anyway.
No,
it's.
I'm. You know what? I'm not going to do that to Jack, because the thing is that my first ever commentary, I will be completely honest with you, wasn't online. It was I'm trying to remember where it was now. Brands Hatch Fun Cup, and we had every single type of rain, like in Forrest Gump. And we got a Fun Cup race that was 4 hours long, red flagged, with 30 seconds on the clock to go.
God.
Yeah.
Now, if you do decide to go and watch it, there is some funny context behind it as well. That when I was younger, my setup was in the kitchen of my house. Okay. So I was doing whisper commentary in my kitchen next to the sitting room where my mum was trying to watch telly. So that's where I started, and I then started to do that regularly for that PS4 league, and then which was, I think the championship was called Gavra. I think they're still going actually after all this time. They're still out there, and met some really nice people that I'm still friends with to this day, 6-7 years later. Particularly one commentary, I knew him as Evil Dragon, but Liam New is his name. He's fantastic. He's still on PS4, hasn't got a PC yet, but hopefully he gets over. Then from PS4, I can't remember. I remember moving into AOR at the time, when it was sort of when it was established as the biggest league then at the time. This is about 2016, 2017. when I moved into that. Started off at the bottom tier and sort of established myself there within F1. That was the first time I moved into F1 style stuff compared to GT. Then from there, sort of a bit of a blur after that. Moved on to P. At the time of the turning point, I think a lot of people who are commentators in sim racing will say this. The turning point for me was when I moved to PC, because consoles you can only get to a certain point. There's very little in the way of progression within consoles at the moment. You have some great talent on there, racing and commentary wise, but the trend is, if you see a lot of the guys in F1 esports now, a lot of them started off in console and moved to PC because the competition was higher for whatever reason. So the same is with commentators. So as soon as I moved over to PC, I got involved with a sort of sim racing organization here in Ireland, which was at the time the Virtual Race Academy. So they were based at at Mondello Park, which is our only racetrack that's FIA accredited. But there's sim setters based there, and I basically sent them an email, hungover, asking, can I please do commentary on your iRacing league? And I heard the story from Niall, who's the owner, recently, that I sent that once he received that email, he sent that into the group chat with the drivers, like, who the hell is this guy and why is he messaging me? But that's how it started. So I moved in with them, did commentary for them for a while at Mondello in person, and helped build their league. Then they then became Digital Motorsports afterwards, and that was where things kind of took off. So we started moving the broadcast to work with Apex Racing TV, like you mentioned. So I got into Apex Racing TV via doing those iRacing broadcasts with Digital Motorsports, and then had amazing opportunities from them. Did a BT Sport broadcast, which is fantastic, and yeah, it's gone up from there.
I think also with the fact that the likes of yourself, George Morgan, who obviously was our first guest here on Commentators Corner, Jake Sperry, you're some of the younger talent that has now been signed by Gemma Scott and Louise Beckett at Loudspeaker Agency, which is also part of what the likes of Bryn Lucas, who we both know, David Addison, the encyclopedia of commentary, is also on the books as well. I think really, sim racing now has become one of the bigger parts of motorsport. It isn't replacing traditional in real life motorsports, but it is part and parcel of the motorsport plethora that we have now. And it's one of the things that, from my perspective, being an in real life commentator before sim racing came to the front, when COVID-19 happened, the pandemic shut everything down, and we were all, some of us were twiddling my thumbs, myself included, but then sim racing came along and changed how, that divide between people that, like yourself, that started off in sim racing commentary, finding that people like myself coming in from the in real life stuff and still being able to transfer the skill set. Because either way, Jack, wouldn't you agree that both, whether it's in real life or whether it's sim racing commentary, there is still that adrenaline buzz. There's still that attention to detail and the preparation, the 7 Ps, as I like to call it, that the same dedication is showcased in both crafts, irrespective of where that person has started off from. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing guys starting to get opportunities who started off within sim racing are now getting the chances to move into real life, and the skill sets are very much transferable, because you need the same amount of prep, as you said, for, let's say, a multi-class endurance event in sim racing is just as much detail as a real life endurance event. You need spotters guides, you need to prep on who's swapping when, and pit strategy. Everything's the same. And it's amazing to see guys starting to get those opportunities as well. I remember when I did the BT Sport broadcast, which is where I met Gemma and how we got talking with to do Loudspeaker, I was commentating with Chris McCarthy, who jumped in as a real life commentator into sim racing, and found that he just immediately was able to do it. There was no delay in looking at and now obviously there are some nuances with iRacing and all that kind of thing that as a sim racing commentator we have the knowledge of that, but the racing is virtual but is also real in a sense that it's, if you transferred that same kind of racing into the real life, it's exactly the same. So and now you see Chris doing so much sim racing, and he's doing really well in Formula Regional as well. So it was great working with him as well. I learned a lot from him in doing that.
Well, funny enough, because Chris and I have known each other for quite a few years, he actually gave me my start in real life commentary through karting. And at the time that we're recording this, qualifying has just been completed for this year's Le Mans 24-hour virtual that's taking place in Paris. Obviously, it was due to take place at the Autosport International Show, but due to COVID-19 restrictions, unfortunately, that didn't quite pan out. That the team was going to be at the NEC in Birmingham this year, but hopefully next time that does change. But going on to sort of like I do always try and look through people's social medias, and don't worry, I've embarrassed George Morgan already, and I know you've given him some crap about that one. But you two seem to be doing a bit of an alternative F1 commentary, which is really, really good. I did see the reaction where George had his hands on the top of his head and you're shouting out, Max Verstappen has got the lead of the Grand Prix. But one of the funniest things that has been happening, and I have to give George a lot of credit for this, is the Racing League darts idea. How on earth did this? I mean, this is the whole point of Commentator's Corner. We're here to get to know people, but also at the end of the day, it's to have a bit of a laugh and a joke. And it might be at somebody's expense. George was definitely he got the bad end of the stick last time on the first episode, but this has really started going on. I mean, that's something, we might have to get old David Croft to get involved with this one at that rate, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the League Racing Darts came about because George has decided that he's a fantastic darts player and wants to stream himself doing it. So he's recently been doing streams on YouTube, which it's actually really well set up the way he's done it. It's split cameras, one on the dartboard, one on him. Yeah. And in the YouTube chat, we basically got a lot of league racers are actually massive darts fans as well, surprisingly enough. And we got chatting in the YouTube chat, and I think it was Evan Dalton what came up with the idea in the YouTube chat for league racing darts, and there's a lot of support behind it. Now, whether it's going to happen or not, I don't know, but there is at the moment a match that is probably definitely going to happen is George Morgan versus Ginger Andy. Because those two have been talking a lot of smack to each other about who's better at darts.
So the group chat on Discord has probably been lighting up quicker than a Christmas tree.
Yes, yeah, you could say that. So I really hope it happens because it's something different and a new way for the community to kind of have a bit of fun as well. But I don't know who I put my money on. I know that to win between George and that, but to be fair, George only hits 180s when it's not needed. So,
like he was like he put on his Twitter page the other day, and he was like, straight away the dulcet Welsh tones like yes. He's only just realizes it at 180, and then he like taps it into the keyboard, and you get the bloke like the bloke on the hockey goes 180. And I just thought, and he's got the full get up, hasn't he, old George?
You
know, but I think it's really, really quite funny how one of the COVID-19 has given us opportunities, but it's also given people to express themselves quite a lot. And I think George has become one of those, I wouldn't say an outspoken character, but he's basically like Joe Public. Everyone accepts him for who he is.
Yeah.
But I mean, coming on to other things, you know, the BT Sports side of things, the Digital Motorsport World Cup. I mean, it's been an interesting time with regards to travel these days. Wouldn't you agree, Jack?
Oh yeah, travel during COVID was probably the worst experience because I also spent 6 months living in Germany for my gap year,
Mhm.
and that was also in the middle of COVID. So um, I remember the stress of trying to get flights home, organize PCR tests,
Mhm.
and only having one flight out of the whole country of Germany in one day. I had to travel 4 hours down to Frankfurt to actually get a flight out of the country. Um, so that was, of course, before vaccination came in. But yeah, travel has been definitely not fun. It's way better than it was before, thankfully,
Mhm.
with the vaccination cert, the EU certs and stuff. But yeah, in Germany, that was not a fun time with PCRs and
Yeah.
all that kind of thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
not fun.
no, I completely understand. I mean, I've had close to 40 PCR and lateral flow tests over the last 18, yeah, I think since last year. I'm fully vaccinated. I've had my booster as well. I mean, I was over in Bahrain for the Rotax Max Challenge Grand Finals. And the requirement was you had 3 PCR tests, even if you were staying less than 10 days. So 8 days, I had 3 PCR tests. I then had to do another PCR test when I came home. And let me just say that they do like to go for grey matter in Bahrain. They also like to do that at Le Mans. They'll go like, yep, just take off your mask, sit back, lean back like this. And I think the only benefit of them going that far down was the fact that my sinuses, because I've got hay fever, were rapidly cleared. And you sort of like, you go like, a bit of water in the eyes. You're sort of like going, oh, that smarts a little bit. And then you go, oh, I can breathe a bit clearly now. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of people that are, there's been a lot happening in the press with regards to recent developments in Australia. And all I'm going to say is, if you know which tennis player it is, you've probably already seen it. We're not here to discuss that on this. That's not the point of Commentators Corner. But what's been one of the best moments that you've had in your commentary career so far? I know that's going to be that's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah. Best moments recently definitely was the World Cup in Poland, hands down. That was kind of a landmark one for many reasons. It was the first one I'd done in person ever. 6 years or 5 years doing it, never done it on site in a studio ever. So that was definitely a new experience, especially because I had never had a co-commentator sitting right next to me, which was new. That I had visual cues I didn't have before, which is always fantastic. It was great because learning studio environment and meeting new guys as well. I met Bryn Lucas there for the first time as well. Very, very nice guy to work with. And working with Kevin as well, who I do all Digital Motorsports broadcast with as well. Our producer, also from Digital Motorsports as well, Ronan. It was a great experience to see kind of all of the work that the guys had put in over many, many years come to a fruition, despite all the obstacles thrown at them, especially with COVID. The plan originally was to have many, many more drivers in the studio, but we could only have 6 in the end. So hopefully that changes, that we can have more, and hopefully an audience as well. That'd be nice to have the extra energy around that. Other moments, definitely BT as well. To getting to do that was probably the most nerve-wracking experience when I first started. I remember Chris McCarthy giving me a pep talk beforehand, telling me to.
Chris is known for that.
Yeah, he's said just do what you do. Just do what you do. It's the same as anything. And that BT series of broadcasts was great to be part of, because I got to commentate on so many drivers who are now in F2, F1, all that work with Chris and with Gemma as well. So obviously that BT stuff led on to getting signed with Loudspeaker after that. So there's been many others. I think there's another one more, getting placed as PSGL F1 commentator. That was a great one as well, because that was basically F1 esports. That's not F1 esports. The level of the grid that you had there, and working with George as well, and getting the sheer unbelievable success out of that with 5,000 to 6,000 live viewers per broadcast on sim racing F1 was amazing. So there's many others, but those three are probably the standout ones.
Yeah, there's always standout moments. I mean, Chris famously the thing is that when I started doing sim racing commentary, I got into it later than Chris did. He went, mate, it's just like the real thing. Just you're going to have to sort of look at your bearings a little bit just to sort of get an idea. And it's all sort of moved on from there, working with the likes of GTR 24H, SimGrid, amongst others, Sim Sport Racing. It was all sort of like I got to work with Apex Racing TV because we had the Rotax Sim Racing Challenge, and so we had Skip Barber 2000s at Okayama, which was quite interesting because we had 540 drivers qualify over a 3-day qualifying period. We whittled it down to the final 72, and then it was like 2 pre-finals, then we had a final. So it was the top 36 that had gotten through, and it was just madness for me. And then I've got to that point now with regards to sim racing commentary that is part of my remit. I mean, is there any advice to anybody out there from the real life commentary side of things that you would say to them if they were saying, well, I'm definitely looking at sim racing as a viable option to be part of my remit? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, there's obviously, if they have their own style within real life racing, don't change it. Keep it, but just get to know the sim that you're doing. Because every sim has its own nuance, little things. Obviously, iRacing has their off-track system, and netcode can be a thing, and ACC, you've got some other stuff as well. So that each sim has their own nuances. So if you can actually drive the sims, if you're able to, and kind of get a feel for how it feels, it's just like real life. Talk to the drivers, ask them how the sim, what's the challenges, blah blah blah, and just do what you do in real life, but just try and apply some sense of knowledge to the sim, which is not too hard to attain anyway. You'll get a general sense from it, and apart from that, just do what you do. That's what Chris said to me. So just do what you do.
I think in some respects, I mean, one sort of final real sort of thing before we wrap things up. I mean, we've talked a couple of times now about sim racing and in real life commentary being very, very similar. You can apply some of the real life sort of dynamics to how a sim reacts, especially like say GT3 racing, Assetto Corsa Competizione, for an example, like say tire pressures, camber, toe in, toe out, the same things, because these simulators are so detailed in terms of their setup. I mean, like I've driven R Factor 2, I've driven Assetto Corsa Competizione. I've not driven iRacing, never had that opportunity yet, but I'm sure that I will do in the not too distant future. I got a complete understanding. So I was like saying, like I was asking one of my friends, like, show me where the settings are. And like they went click, and like it just literally went down the screen. I was like, holy crap. I mean, you like with a lot of people, like say David Addison, a name that I mentioned already. He was doing a lot of the work with SRO for the British GT esports, also for the for the other esports championships as well. That he's done a lot of work, especially with the SRO, so he knows that the sim is going to be very, very similar to what it is in real life. Wouldn't you agree on that one? That you can use some of your real life experience as a real life commentator into sim racing, can't you?
Yeah, you can. It's very, very. A lot of people think there isn't much crossover, but there is a huge amount of crossover between it. As I said before, the only thing that's going to change is the little differences between the simulators. Apart from that, it is virtually identical to doing real life and virtual. Of course, when the other thing you've got to think about as well is if you're doing iRacing, you've got to use software to get synced up with views of cameras and stuff. That is probably the hardest part about it, is trying to get used to software to view the racing. Getting in to watch the race is the problem.
And unless you've got a broadcaster that can stream it to you directly by Discord, and you've got SDK timing as well, which is what tends to happen with me, because some of us commentators like myself, we are of the Tim Cook variety when it comes to our computer preferences, but that's not through choice. That's through what I've used for the last 25 years. But the thing is, there's always ways and means for broadcasts to happen, and we all know that the wonders of Discord, TeamSpeak, and other kind of software platforms like that can really, really help with regards to bringing people on board. But Jack, thank you very much for your time here on Commentators Corner. And everybody, stay tuned for episode 3. We're going to have another great guest here on Commentators Corner. But don't forget, you can find Jack's Twitter handle down in the description down below. So why not give him a follow, and just keep an eye on what he's getting up to in the next few weeks and months. So Jack, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Alex.